Hello everybody and welcome back once again to Kagyu Samyuzong Edinburgh for the third part of our course in the 4 preliminary foundations. And so today's course is on karma, cause and effect. But before we start, let's say the prayers, the introductory prayers. So we'll say the refuge prayer once in English and then twice in the Tibetan phonetics, so 3 times in all. And then we'll say the prayer to the Lama and then the prayer to the lineage. And we'll say those in English, but we'll recite them, we'll kind of chant them as well. I think we've done it before, so hopefully you're getting familiar with it by now. Okay, so in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the noblest Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. Through the virtue generated by the practice of generosity and other virtues, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. O Sanjay Chotang Suji Chonam La Changcho Padu Dani Chapsunji Dagi Jinso Jipe Sonamji Dwala Penche Sanjiro Parsho Sanjay Chotang Suji Chonamla Changcho Padu Dani Chapsunji Dagi Jinso Jipe Sonamji Dwala Penche Sanjiro Parsho. And then the prayer to the Lama. Glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. Great Vajradhara Tilonaro Marpamila Damalod Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, holders of the 4 elder and 8 younger lineages. Trikantaklang and the Salpa, glorious Drugpa, and so forth, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, to the Dagpo instruction lineage, the peerless protectors of wanderers. Kagyu Lamas, I supplicate you, I uphold your lineage. Grant the blessings of your liberating lives, just as revulsion is taught to be the legs of meditation. This meditator clings not to food and riches, and has severed the ties to this life. Grant your blessings for detachment from honor and gain, just as devotion is taught to be the head of meditation. This meditator constantly prays to the Lama, who opens the vault of pith instructions. Grant your blessings for uncontrived devotion to well forth. Just as non-distraction is taught to be the body of meditation, this meditator simply remains without altering the fresh essence of whatever thought arises. Grant your blessings for parting from the concept of meditation. Just as thought is taught to be in essence Dharmakaya, for this meditator unhindered manifestation dawns. Nothing whatsoever dawning as whatever may be. Grant your blessings to realize inseparable samsara nirvana. May I never in future lives part from authentic lamas, and embracing ever the glory of Dharma, may I perfect the qualities of the levels and paths, and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. So we're going to begin our study and meditation on the very, very important topic of karma, cause and effect. And before we get into it, we should first of all say the root text. And before we get into the root text of karma, we need to also say the root text of the previous parts, which is that of the difficulty of getting a precious human life, and then also death, change, and impermanence. And so we'll say each of these first in English and then in the Tibetan phonetics. The difficulty of getting a fully endowed human life. The first meditation topic concerns the precious human life endowed with every freedom and asset. It is difficult to get and can be easily destroyed, so now is the time to make it meaningful. Tangpo gomcha dacho rinchendi, topka jikla tare tanyurcha. Secondly, death and impermanence. The universe and everything that lives therein is impermanent, particularly the lives of beings which are like water bubbles. The time of death is uncertain, and when you die, you will become a corpse. Dharma will help you at that time, therefore practice it diligently now. Nipa nerchu tamche miktaching gusu droe soso jowotra namchi chame shitse rurujor tela chichi penchit sompe drup. And then karma, actions and their consequences. Thirdly, after your death, you will have to experience your own karma, having no degree of control over what happens. So give up harmful actions. All your time should be spent in the practice of virtue. Thinking this way, evaluate your life daily. Sumpa shitse rangwang minduar, leni dagir chachir dikpapang, gewe chawe tatu dawacha, shisam nyinre rangjun nilatak. So, karma, cause and effect, or karma, cause and you could say cause, karma and consequences. It's a bit like chicken and egg. There's no actual beginning or end because it's a cycle, so it depends where you come in on the cycle. There's a lot of nonsense talked about karma. I think there's a kind of misconception that karma is to do with reward and punishment, something like that. It's not the case. Basically, the word karma itself means actions. But, you know, when we have to see it in the context of all the other preliminaries. So, for example, when we're talking about precious human life, the idea is to appreciate the opportunity that we have to realize our full potential, which is our Buddha nature. And then the one we did before, the most recent one was death and impermanence. So with that, we start to understand that the life that we have is fragile. We don't know when it's going to end. It could be a long time, it could be a short time. Whatever the case, we need to act now, and we need to act wisely now, because when we're on our deathbed, it's too late. And so now we're looking at karma, cause and effect. So now is the time when we can basically, what we're experiencing now is a result of our past actions, our past karma. So whatever good things happen to us is because of our past karma, our past actions. It's the consequences. And whatever we do now is going to have its result, is going to have its own consequences. So our future karma, our future results will depend on what we do now. So by looking at karma, cause and effect, we examine the best way to do that. So because we know that karma means actions, we need to know which actions we should do, which is going to be helpful to ourselves and to others, and which to avoid, because they're not helpful to ourselves, and it can even be harmful to ourselves and others. Because depending on which of those we choose, those are the results we'll get, isn't it? If we do a good action, we'll get good results. If we do a bad action or a negative action, we'll get negative results. Good actions produce happiness, negative ones produce suffering. And that's the whole wheel of samsara is concocted like that. Nothing happens by accident. So, in order to know which actions to take up and which actions to abandon, we need to really kind of wise up. We need to wake up and wise up. And, you know, the best actions are the ones which lead to our liberation and help us to help other beings do the same. So to do that, we need to cultivate the wisdom that teaches that leads to that lasting happiness, not just the transient pleasures, but the lasting happiness, and that triumphs then over the opposite, which is the ignorance and negative actions that produce more and more suffering and sort of prolong the wheel of samsara. It's a vast subtopic. It's huge. And it's said that only fully enlightened Buddhas can truly understand the scope, and because the scope, it's not just our actions in this lifetime, it's from countless lifetimes since beginningless time and into the future. So it's mind-blowing for ordinary beings. But we can understand it in a simple way, which is that good actions produce good results, bad actions produce bad results. And we can see this in our life, you know. If you plant an apple seed and you water it and it has light and it has all the good conditions, it will grow into an apple tree. It will never, ever grow into a tomato plant or an oak tree or anything else other than what the seed was. So karma's like that. It is unmistaken. If you do a good deed, it will produce good results. The time scale is debatable. We don't know when it's going to be. Some actions produce very quick results. Sometimes it can be later in your life or even in future lives to come, way down the line. And that's why it's so hard to understand, to get the connections every time. But some of the time we can definitely see the connections. For example, if you go into a room and you smile at somebody and you're nice to them, chances are they'll be nice back to you. If you go into a room scowling at everybody and being aggressive, then you're not going to get a great response. So even simple things like that, we can see how it works. So how do we learn how to adopt what's useful and helpful and abandon what isn't? So for that, we need to look at the mind, because actions don't just happen by themselves. Whatever we do with our speech, whatever we do with our body, they have to be instructed by the mind. And so that's the key to this, because the actions are the end result, if you like. So we need to get to the root cause of what causes us to act in a good or bad way, or positive or negative way. A lot of the time, if we don't really know, then it's kind of can be a bit chancy, a bit sort of, well, sometimes we may act well, sometimes not. A lot of the time we don't really understand the consequences of what we do. And we can look at this on an individual scale, but we can also look at it as part of a society or the world. Whatever we're experiencing now is a result of either our individual actions or how we've been acting as the human race. So we need to examine our mind, and we need to uproot what's obstructing us, the obstacles. In Tibetan, the word is kleshas. It's sometimes translated as obstacles or mind poisoners, kleshas, or they're like defilements. Whatever's defiling our mind or kind of spoiling the view. You know, if your mind was like a clear window, and but it's got a lot of dirt on it, and no matter how good the window is, with all the dirt, you're not going to see clearly, and then it's going to distort how you see, and then that will influence your actions to be in a not such a great way. So it's like cleaning windows. It's not really like cleaning windows. If only it was that easy. But so anyway, or you could say, you know, that another simile would be like to like the kleshas are not part of our true nature, our Buddha nature. They're kind of like weeds that have sort of planted themselves, but that can be uprooted. And the Buddha nature is never polluted, never not pure. But you know, sometimes the weeds can grow. So we need to check out what's going on, and we need to look at our mind, at the root causes of our actions. So when we look at the root causes and we come to understand them, then with that understanding, that's what kind of uproots them. Even you could say maybe transform would be a better word, because with understanding, we're not sort of under the sway of them anymore, because we see how it is. You know, if you think, for example, as a very small child, maybe the first time you ever saw fire, and it looked really interesting, and it's bright, and it's shiny, and it's animated, and you want to touch it. Oh my goodness me, you touch it and you get burnt. You're hot and you scream and you cry because you found out that it might look nice, but it certainly doesn't feel nice. And so you've learned that. And so you're not going to do that again. Probably you won't put your hand in the fire again because you've understood something. And that's kind of how it is with the mind. When you really truly understand, oh, I've been so misguided, I didn't get it, and now I can see. So then you're not going to repeat it, or the chances are much, much less that you're going to repeat the negative stuff you were doing, because you can see them for what they are. So it's kind of like that. And then that's how the transformation happens. So what was ignorance becomes understanding, and becomes, you're able to progress then. So what are these root causes? There are many causes, but they all kind of boil down to three major root causes. And they are ignorance, in all its forms, basic ignorance, just not knowing. You could say stupidity or just not knowing. That's one. And then desire, which is kind of like attachment, grasping, wanting, great desire. And then the third one is the opposite. It's kind of not wanting. It can be anger or aversion or denial, not wanting, because we spend a lot of our lives running after what we want and running away from what we don't want. And we're kind of back and forth like this. So these are the subjects that we really need to reflect on and meditate on and identify in our mind and see the root of why we act the way we do, So the first topic for meditation then, is ignorance. And actually this is the hardest one, because at the base of our ignorance, the basis for our ignorance is difficult to understand. Because what it comes down to is a mistaken belief in I. And we cherish this I above everything else. I mean, maybe we can be unselfish from time to time, but basically we have a lot of selfishness because we have this self. We believe in this self, this ego. Excuse me. It's not really there. There is no such thing called the ego. But its effects are, it's because it's misunderstanding of how things are, that's how it manifests. And we're so strongly attached to this I, and to the idea of this I, and not only I, but me and mine, and what's mine. So it isn't easy to get to grips with, but I think it will become more apparent when we carry on and look at the other manifestations, because we're so kind of have this I so entrenched from being born. From the moment we're born, we're taught in this way, you know, be the best, you're number one, you know, get to the top, and all of this this way of thinking, and it's everywhere. It's a big kind of misunderstanding. So so then, you know, to overcome that takes quite a lot of insight, because you're going against the grain of the let's say the lowest common denominator, to put it in a mildly derogatory term, I think. But that's kind of how it is. You know, you find yourself going against the grain, as it were. You're not, in effect, you're not. You're going with the way things are. But it may not seem like that. Anyway, I think it'll become more apparent when we look at the other two. So then the next one is desire, attachment, craving, clinging, wanting. This attitude of clinging and attachment to what we perceive as I, or mine, my body. This body that we inhabit, and the great lengths we go to looking after it. Of course, it's good to look after your body and make sure that it's functioning well, and you know, you're not putting it in harm's way. But we go to way beyond that. We go to, you know, it has to be comfortable. It has to have the nice seat. It has to have a good chair. It has to have the best clothes. It has to not just how we dress it. Maybe we need to pamper it quite a lot as well. You know, okay, it's good to keep it clean, but do we really need to pamper it to quite the degree that we do? Actually, you could say that over looking after it, too much looking after it, makes it weak, because we kind of habituate it to being very soft, very kind of delicate, if you like. And not to mention putting the makeup on, dressing it up in maybe designer clothes, and then the body itself, you know, dyeing our hair, putting lots of stuff on. Plastic surgery, I mean, that's taking it to big extremes. But now that's so common. I see young girls, you know, and boys, but maybe predominantly young girls, I guess, with their lips all puffed out and looking weird, you know, and great big nails on that look like claws, and all sorts of stuff they have done to their bodies. You know, this is actually the way of suffering, because, and you can see this, you know, the way people are never ever satisfied. You know, they'll get something done and they'll get something else done, and oh, that means they need something else done. And it's this never-ending thing, because this is not where our happiness lies. But of course, you know, by being it's in this kind of constant state of dissatisfaction with how we are, we're thinking we're not enough, we should have this better and that better, in whatever the idea of better happens to be. And the idea of beauty changes throughout the centuries, isn't it? So there's no defined thing. It shows you that it doesn't really have any true existence. It's just our perception. And it changes all the time. And especially these days, because in the modern day, it suits the people that are selling us things to perpetuate this, because then we'll buy more products off them, or we'll get more things done to ourselves and pay thousands of pounds to get it done, or to have these things that we think is going to make us look better, or our bodies better in some way. So yeah, we become like, very gullible, the advertiser's dream. So the more dissatisfied we are, the more we'll buy in this vain attempt to make ourselves happy and be satisfied by going down completely the wrong route. It's never going to happen. Not that way. So we need to really take stock here, because we could save ourselves a lot of time and effort and money by just realizing that that's not the way to go. It's never going to lead to your happiness. It's like drinking seawater. You think you're going to quench your thirst, it's just going to make you more thirsty. Then we can extend this me, this so-called me, to mine. So my family, my friends, my house, my work, my career, all of which support this erroneous idea of a self, which wants this or that. Not what it needs, but what it wants. Of course we need what we need. We need to eat, we need to drink, we need clean air, we need clean water, we need the earth. These are all the things, by the way, which we pollute. So this shows you how crazy the whole thing is. And this even if you attain these things, they don't bring you any lasting happiness. They may bring you a bit of satisfaction for a short time, but then there's something else that leads to something else. Oh, well, you've got that house, but maybe they've got a bigger house, so maybe you need the bigger house, or the newest pair of trainers, or whatever level it's on. And then you might get proud about it. So then this desire has lots of subsections, like envy because somebody else has got it, or pride because you've got it. So these are some of the subsections that are coming from the desire. Or greed, you want more, whatever it is, because it's never enough. So all stem from this craving, this clinging mind of desire. And if it just puts you in a constant state of wanting, which is suffering, isn't it? If you're never satisfied, you're always suffering. So it has the opposite effect of making you happy. And, globally, we can see how it works on a bigger scale. I mean, the lengths that we go to give ourselves these goods and things that we need, that we think we need, we don't really need them, we only want them. But, we kind of lord it over the earth and sort of, take the earth for granted and plunder it, really. There's no other word. We plunder the earth, we pollute the earth. We can see what it leads to. We pollute the earth, we pollute the waters, pollute the air, and it backfires on us in the form of all these things that we need. We are now polluted because of the things that we want. And then we still don't realize, and then when we start to have climate change and the ice caps melting, or the storms coming, and so much rain or so much drought, then we're starting to wake up and think, oh, now what's the connection? Why is this happening? It's our karma. It's because of our actions, individually, society, globally. Actions and their consequences, whether on an individual scale or a global scale. But while we're alive, while we have this precious opportunity of a good life, for whatever good things that we did in the past. We must have done something to get good conditions that we have. We've got the brain, we've got the intelligence, we've got a body that can do as it's told, if you tell it the right things. So we have to look at our minds, make sure that our minds are giving the right instructions here to get the good results that are good for us, that are good for all beings. And that's what the Dharma is all about. Looking at your mind, acting in the best way you can, and then enjoying the good results for yourself and for others. It sounds easy, but of course it isn't. But it all starts with the mind. It's not easy, but it is simple. It starts with the mind. So then moving on to aversion, the opposite of desire, what we don't want. Aggression, anger. We can get angry about it, can't we? This klesha, this mind poison, it mostly arises in regard to those we see as other. We like some people and some things. We don't like other people and other things. And we even reject them. Sometimes we don't even know them. We just take an instant dislike to somebody for no apparent reason. And this I, or me, it can include my family, my friends, versus those who are not, the ones outside that group. So it's like self, and me and mine, versus the world, or other. Me, my family, my friends, it could be my country, or my town, a football club, versus those that are not. There's no real basis for this. We can see that the definitions are changeable. Sometimes you might be proud of your town because it's, whatever, and then other times you might hate it. You might think of your family as, yes, my wonderful family, but the minute you have an argument or somebody says something nasty to your sibling or your mother or father, whoever it is in your family, then suddenly they're the enemy. So they're not always my lovely family. Then they're the other one, because there's no actual basis of truth in any of these designations. I, me, mine, other. It's not like that. I think we can all think of some time with a family member or a friend who, they were our favourite one, my favourite friend, my best friend, or, and then you have a big argument, a blow up, you're saying horrible things to each other, you don't want to see that person again, maybe you fall out for years, or forever. Maybe not, maybe you make up. But it's a movable thing, isn't it? There's no set way, because it doesn't truly exist in that way. But when we have this animosity to somebody, whether we see them as a friend or who's gone wrong or something, or we've seen them initially as an enemy, then it becomes very easy to blurt out angry words and say horrible things, hurtful things. Yeah, and then that leads to the karma that you will get back from that. That's not going to make them feel happy, is it? So they're going to probably get back to you. And aversion, it can also lead to resentment. If you maybe sometimes you do need to air some sort of grievance. Maybe you need to talk things over, and maybe you don't. So maybe that kind of leads to some sort of resentment inside. And it festers and it gets bigger and bigger. And then it kind of explodes in some kind of negative behavior. It can explode and even be fighting each other. Physically fighting each other, doing each other harm. Even killing. It happens, doesn't it? You always hurt the one you love. What is that all about? You know, but there's a certain relative truth to it, isn't there? Because you lay yourself open, you know where the weak points are, the ways to hurt somebody. And what kind of karma do you think, action do you think that is? And what kind of result and consequences is that going to have? People kill each other for love, in inverted commas. So that kind of negative way of seeing things produces very negative results. These poisons, these obstructions, you know, that cloud the view. On a national level, you know, when we're arguing like that, we can be dropping bombs on each other. You know, weapons and weapons of destruction and wars that can go on for years and years and years, killing millions of people. Think about all the vast fortunes and resources that are spent on bombs and weapons of all different kinds. That money could have been used for good things, for healing, for helping, for feeding people. But we spend more on so-called defense. Yeah, destruction, famine, and death are the result of that karma, those actions. Doesn't have to be that way. So these kleshas or defilements, they cause endless suffering. It goes on and on. If there were no kleshas, then there would be no painful results of negative karma. Therefore, we need to get rid of them, eliminate them, or transform them, see through them so that they no longer have power over us. I mean, then we can display the positive qualities and act in good ways, positive, wise, intelligent ways, as our Buddha nature becomes revealed. You know? So we need to really look into this, look into these poisons that are the cause of our negative actions and that cause negative results. We need to investigate to see the truth of it in our own life, in our own mind, in our own life, see how it plays out. And in those of others, we can watch the way things happen around us. Non-judgmentally, that's important. You don't judge anybody for anything. You just see and watch and learn. Because as we pointed out, people do things not necessarily because they set out to do negative things. It's because of ignorance, attachment and desire. So actually we should have compassion for people in that and ourselves, because we're kind of floundering, not really understanding. But, you know, we can't work on everybody else. We need to work on ourselves first. In fact, that's all we can do. And then we are in a much better position to be able to help others, because we can see clearer. Otherwise, it's the blind leading the blind, isn't it? So these three poisons are the cause of our negative actions, cause negative results. We need to investigate it, see the truth of it, and really meditate on it, reflect on it, meditate on it, observe it. That's how we're going to get to the bottom of this. Something I want to read to you is a small book. It's by Dogo Chense Rinpoche, and it's very, very concise. But I just want to read you something that he says. So he's talking about how it connects to death and impermanence, how karma, the law of cause and effect, connects to death and impermanence. So he says, if death was simply like a fire going out or like water drying up, it would be fine. There'd be not much point in practicing the Dharma. But this is not what happens. When the mind and body separate, the body is left behind on the earth to disintegrate. But the mind goes on to take many more rebirths. And at that point, the only one thing that determines where and how our next life will be, it is the balance of positive and negative actions committed in the past that are embedded in our consciousness, that which continues. If negative actions predominate, we will experience the suffering of rebirth in lower realms. If positive ones predominate, we will experience rebirth in higher states of existence. But it's not on our deathbed or in the bardo that we should start to think about positive and negative actions. It's now, while we have our life and our strength and our ability to change. So that's a very important point to remember. Now, we haven't actually started looking at specific actions themselves because it's such a big topic, and I didn't want to really go into that side of it and then have to sort of break off halfway through. So I think we're going to look at the particular actions in the next session of this course, part 2 of part 3, if you like. But suffice it to say that whatever our actions are, it's not an easy thing sometimes, you know. For example, we're saying that if you do something positive, you'll get positive results. But the extent of the karma coming from positive or negative depends on 4 different properties that have to be there in greater or lesser extent. So whatever the action is, it needs a person, an actor, a person that acts. It needs an intention to do something, or motivation. So this person has to have an idea about doing something, or a wish and motivation to do something. Then there's the actual doing of it, the act of it itself, the application of it. That's the 3rd one. And then the 4th one is the result, but not only the result, how the actor feels about the result. And that's just seeing it from the point of view of the actor, not the person or things being acted upon. We're just looking at our own mind here, and we're the actor. So, for example, say we have a bad intention. Say we dislike somebody to such a degree that we really think, oh, I don't like that person. I'm going to do what I can to sort of upset them. And these days, the potential for that is enormous, because not only can you just directly say something to them, but you could say put something online. And then you're hurting them for all time. You put something negative online, they see it, they're going to see it, but so do millions of other people, potentially, and then it stays there. So this produces really very negative karma that's ongoing. That's an extreme example, but I think we need to look at these things in the light of modern technology, because we have no idea about the kind of bad karma negative karma that we're accruing from this. I mean, when you say something in the heat of the moment to somebody and it's not nice, and then you regret it, then that will have less negative karma than if you do something with really intention, you intend to do it, you do it, and then it has the effect of multiplying because you put it out into the world. And then say you enjoy it. I did it. Yeah, they're really getting it in the neck now. So you've got negative, a person, the negative intention, the carrying it out, and then rejoicing that you've done something horrible because it had the desired result for what you wanted. You achieved what you wanted to do. Now, let's say we'll have a different situation. So say you do something negative to somebody. So somebody's upset you, and so you lash out at them. You might even punch them or whatever. But then supposing you really regret it, and you say, what did I do? What a stupid, horrible thing to do. I'm so sorry. And you apologize, and you mean it, you're sincere about it. So then, even though you did that harm, and you will get the karma from that, it won't be anywhere near as strong. The results won't be as strong as if you hadn't regretted it, if you'd enjoyed doing something bad. So it's complicated. It has many different levels of result. And also, if you strongly regret it and you strongly confess it, you can actually turn it round completely. There's nothing that is so bad that you can't turn it round. Especially if it has to be sincere confession and genuine wish never to do that negative thing again, and then everything you can pretty much wipe the slate clean. And especially if you start to do good things as a result of that, see the error of your ways, and then start to do things that are positive, then you can really, you can even get enlightened. Look at the life of Milarepa. He did some terrible things for the wrong motivation. He was trying to please his mother. He felt, begrudged the fact that he had some reason. His relatives were robbing him, but he went a bit overboard in what he did. He ended up killing a lot of them by bringing the house down, literally bringing the house down, not in a good way. And he actually fell on all his relatives and killed them. And it's only through his genuine regret and remorse, and then spending his entire life doing good and seeing the error of his ways and becoming a fully enlightened being, with great hardships, of course, but it's an extreme example, but it shows you what's possible. And even if for example, you take the opposite end of the spectrum, if you imagine that you're going to do something good, or you can be genuinely, you see somebody in the street, they're begging or they're homeless or something like that, and you just, poor person, and you give them some money or you give them some food. You have a genuine wish to help them. Maybe you can offer them some accommodation even, or point them in the right direction, help them in some way, or just to talk to them, and then it's very genuine. But supposing, so then there's the good karma that comes from that, the good results that come from that karma. But, a good act can be for prestige. You might decide to give a lot of money to charity in the in the knowledge that other people will respect you for that. So you're still doing a good thing, but your motivation is tainted. It's not so pure. So it's still, you'll get some good karma from doing some good result, but it won't be full, because you have mixed motives. Or you could even do a good thing and then regret it and say, now I've given that person that, and now I'm a bit short of money, now I shouldn't have done that. And you're regretting having done a good act. Again, you're lessening the good act. So you see, it has lots of different repercussions. Good act, but with bad motivation. Bad act could be with good motivation. Even, you might kill one person to save 10 others. still some karma coming from that, but your motivation was to save 10 lives, even though you had to sacrifice one. So all of these things will be we have to consider when we start looking at the actions. But I think the most important thing now is for us to look at our minds and the root causes, because without that, that is what the actions come from. So let's have a little contemplation on this, and we'll do it as if we were doing, if you're doing your practice at home. So basically, we'll do some meditation on the topic of desire, and then on the topic of, aversion, aggression. Okay, so make yourselves comfortable. And when we're doing this, it's good to have a kind of very objective view at yourself, at your mind, so you don't beat yourself up. That's not the idea. If you find something that you think needs improving, you should celebrate because you've seen it. Mostly people don't see it, and that's why they end up doing negative stuff. It's not that they particularly set out to, generally, although things can become habitual. Once you start doing things negatively, then you'll carry on. These are the neural pathways that we set up, and by doing a bad action and then we repeat and repeat and repeat, then we have a real habit of doing that. The opposite is also true. If we do good things, if we see the good of doing something, if it makes us happy to do good things, we see that, then that will have its good result and habituate us to acting in that way. So just get into a good posture, straighten up your back in a holistic way. I like to think of it as if you're growing up towards the sky, like your head is like the crown of a tree growing up to the light. And just tuck your chin in a little bit, sort of bring it in, and that way your neck is straight. Your neck is aligned with your spine. It might feel a little bit strange if you've been sitting in a poor posture. When you put yourself into a good one, it can feel unfamiliar and a little strange at first, but then you get used to it and just relax into it. Relax, but don't collapse. They're not the same thing at all. So maintaining a good posture, and either your hands on your knees or in your lap, with the right resting on top of the left and the thumb tips touching. The eyes resting, looking downwards, open so you don't get drowsy, but not really looking at anything in particular. You're not really using your eyes because you're using your inner eye. You're looking inwardly at your mind. Of course, your mind is invisible. There's no actual thing, but what's happening in your mind. So just relax your breathing, breathing deeply, naturally. You don't need to force anything. Using your lungs, your diaphragm, and your belly. Relax your belly and allow it to expand as you breathe in, and deflate as you breathe out. And we'll count to 21 breaths, just to settle body and mind. Each cycle of one in-breath, one out-breath will count as one, and we'll count 21 breaths. And now with your mind settled, body resting, both in good posture, turn your mind to reflect on others, on what makes other people or beings happy and what gives them suffering. Some things will be very obvious, some things more subtle. And when you really go into them, they may even end up being the opposite of what they originally seemed to be. For example, does great wealth make people happy? If they are rich, are they necessarily happy? Or if they're poor, are they necessarily unhappy? These are just two examples. Okay, and then letting go, relax. And now let's look at ourselves, at what we're attached to. What am I attached to, and how does it make me feel? What feelings does it provoke? The things that I'm attached to, or people I'm attached to, the aims and ambitions I'm attached to, the things we want. feelings do we have around that? Just looking dispassionately, non-judgmentally, objectively, deeply. When we're looking at people, we can think of, is there a difference between desire and love? Between love and attachment? We're looking at our ambitions, our career, our work. Is there a difference between aspiration and expectation? Where do we find our happiness? What makes us happy? The mind that's always wanting, or when we feel contented? peaceful, not wanting. And relax again, let go of the reflections, just allow your mind to settle, resting in clarity and awareness. And now let's turn our minds to the topic of aversion, the opposite of desire, what we don't want, what we're averse to. And first looking at how that plays out in others and in the world. Aversion can become hatred. Or it can be something kind of mild, like impatience or irritation. Which can grow into resentment and even hatred and aggression. See how it plays out in the lives of others. And in the world generally. How aversion develops for no apparent reason, or something as superficial as being averse to somebody because of where they come from, or the colour of their skin. Their difference to you. This way of looking, where does it come from? Does it come from intelligence, or does it come from ignorance? Look at our own aversion, whatever we feel averse to and angry towards, or just impatient with, slightly irritated by. And how it plays out in our speech and our actions towards others. And how things escalate. If we consider both desire and aversion, two sides of the same coin. I want, I don't want. All predicated on this I that has no independent existence. It's empty of existence. All things exist interdependently. When we truly start to understand that, then so many kleshas, so many misconceptions start to fade away on examination. Resting in awareness. Let your mind be free and open in its natural state. Limitless. So everything I was saying at that point was just things that were occurring to me. Don't feel that you have to do it exactly like that. You know, I don't want to mislead you in that way, because you should think for yourself in the way that you think. But that was just to give you a kind of example of how we know when we sit and meditate, we reflect, and then we go deeper, deeper, deeper. Of course, we didn't spend that long. When you do your own meditation, and I would say maybe do a week on meditating on desire, and then a week on meditating on aversion. And then maybe after the next week or 2 weeks, you can do a bit of both, but maybe go deep into one and then deep into the other. But you know, just you'll find your own way. But the thing is to really look at your own life and be honest and kind of frank with yourself and see. You'll be surprised. I think things aren't how they often aren't how they appear to be, and very often it can be completely opposite when you really look deeply. Things ain't what they appear to be. So yeah, I think you've got plenty to go at, and then when we come back for the next session, then we're going to start looking at all the different actions. But you know, I think that the hardest part is to look at your mind, and that we need to do. That's the key to it. It's the absolute essential thing to do. So be brave, get in there, you know, and don't be judgmental. You just notice it, see what needs correcting, see what needs cultivating. You'll see some good things too, and you can cultivate that. What makes you happy? You know, when you're fighting with someone, does that make you happy? Does it make them happy? No. When you do something nice for someone, you make them happy, you make yourself happy. Win-win. So that's kind of a very simple way of looking at it, but it's true nonetheless, isn't it? So next time you want to spend a fortune doing something that you think is going to make you happy, check it out first before you spend your money. Okay, so I'd like to just finish by another little quote from Dzogchen. Wonderful teacher. I mean, the one on this cover is no longer with us, but his reincarnation is actually. I wasn't fortunate enough to meet this one who came to Samye Ling and was instrumental in the building of Samye Ling, or where it was going to be built. And his reincarnation was a little boy when I met him in Nepal. I think now he must be about 20. I'm still thinking of him like a tiny boy. Anyway, he said, in order to develop steadfast and diligent mindfulness, because that's what it's about being mindful of what's going on, we have to realize that our present condition, our suffering in samsara, is nothing but the result of our negative actions. If we don't stop these negative actions and just carry on as before, we will continue to experience suffering. By cultivating positive actions, words and thoughts, we are earning our own happiness. Once we know this, once we truly know this, we will naturally be alert and diligent in watching our minds. And of course, when we watch our minds, we will act more wisely, and then the results will be happiness and contentment and all the positive qualities. So I wish you well with all of this, with your investigations and your, be brave, look in there, and we can meet back after you've done some work on this, and I will too, and then we will look into actions themselves and the more sort of subtle variations and how they play out. But I think going into the mind is the most important thing. I'm sorry, I'm probably repeating this too many times. Maybe it's impossible to repeat too many times. So let's say the dedication and close our practice for today. And we'll say it first in the English and then in the Tibetan. Through the wholesomeness of this practice, may all the mental defilements be overcome, and may all beings be liberated from the ocean of samsara, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness and death. Sanam deyi tamche zikpani, topne nyepe danam pamchene, jiganachi balak drukpai, sipe sole doa doa sho. Bon voyage on your journey to inner space. May the force be with you.